Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing some Twilightsworn test stands. So I'm really excited to show you guys because this deck is actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Gloomba. And this deck is an extremely fun deck to play around with because you can actually summon out the dark counterpart versions of your Lightsworn monsters, which is an absolutely insane thing to do. Even summoning out a dark counterpart version of Judgment Dragon in the form of Punishment Dragon, which you can actually recycle your cards. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test stands. And definitely give Gloomba some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such an awesome deck. So let's get straight on into this one, guys. So this deck is super fun to be able to play because you can summon out some really insane cards, and this deck really loves going into the grind game, especially with cards like Punishment Dragon in the deck, being able to recycle all of your cards except for your Lightsworn monsters, which keeps them banished and in the graveyard, which is a really good effect. But you guys know that it's dad rule number one, that we gotta pile shuffle the deck so that we don't run the risk of bricking, because you don't want to brick with a deck like this, especially with how you basically mill out so many cards. Your cards might actually stick together if you don't pile shuffle the deck, which is extremely important for this deck to not happen, because you'll run into scenarios where you'll draw into multiple copies of Punishment, multiple copies of Judgment, and you just don't want that to happen. So make sure that you pile shuffle the deck. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do for our first test hand. So we're going to go ahead and cut the deck and then see what we can do for the first one. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Solar Recharge, a copy of our Lila, another copy of Solar Recharge, a copy of Punishment Dragon, and a copy of our Raiden. This is actually a pretty decent hand right off the bat because we have our copy of Punishment already in the hand. So I'm going to go ahead and discard the copy of our Lila and the copy of Solar Recharge to the graveyard to be able to draw 2 cards and then mill 2 cards, which is really good just to be able to draw 2 and then mill 2. We're actually going to get a copy of Star Legion in the graveyard along with a copy of Plague Spreader, which gives us an additional monster we can actually summon. So I'm then going to use the copy of Felice and the copy of Solar Recharge to be able to draw 2 more off the top of the deck, which is 2 copies of Charge of the Light Brigade, which is insane, and then be able to send the next 2 off the top of the deck. We're then going to use the copy of Charge of the Light Brigade to send the next 3 cards off the top of the deck, which we actually hit 4, and we're going to go ahead and send the next 3 off the top of the deck and then get a search from the deck, so it doesn't really matter that we saw the card anyways. And I'm going to grab a copy of Lumina just to get our plays set up, which is really nice because we have some really insane plays with this particular hand because we drew into a double Solar Recharge in our hand. We're actually set up already for a Judgment Dragon in the graveyard, which is really insane. We can then use the second copy of Charge of the Light Brigade to be able to mill 3 more cards off the top of the deck, and use the copy of the Minerva to mill an additional card off the top of the deck, and then draw another card out of the deck that is a Lightsworn monster, which is going to help us out a lot to grab a card like our copy of Raikou that we can discard to the graveyard. And since we hit Fairy Tale Snow, we have some really good plays that we can actually roll into, which is really nice for this deck. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and send that to the graveyard and give our first normal summon after we've milled through all of these cards already. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and normal summon out the copy of Lumina, use the effect of the Lumina to be able to check the graveyard really quickly, make sure we have a copy of our Hand of the Lightsworn, which we actually do in the graveyard, to be able to discard our copy of Raikou to bring it back to our side of the field. We can then use the copy of our Raiden to be able to mill 2 more cards off the top of the deck, which is a copy of our Lumina and our copy of our Charge of the Light Brigade, which is pretty good to be able to just get in the graveyard. We also have cards that we can bring back from the graveyard to our side of the field, like Fairy Tale Snow, which is going to be an extremely powerful card to bring back by just banishing out Lightsworn monsters that we don't need anymore, like additional Lightsworn names, which is very important to be able to do because it's going to get you our copy of Punishment Dragon onto our side of the field, which is really good. So let's go ahead and check the graveyard and see what kind of Lightsworn names we actually have in the grave. We actually have Minerva, we have our copies of Lumina, Raikou, a copy of Lila, and everything else basically can be banished, which is really good because we have multiple names in the graveyard. We actually have 7 names in the graveyard, which is insane, and we're about to add 2 more in just a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and banish our copy of Lumina, a copy of Charge, both of these 2 right here, and 1 more name because we don't need it anyways. And this is actually going to set up with these 4 being banished, we're going to set up for a copy of Judgment and a copy of Punishment at the same time. So that's 5 cards and 6 right there. And we've actually got all 7 to summon out our copy of Fairy Tale Snow, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because it's in the graveyard. And we're going to special summon it out to the field. And these 3 will return back to the graveyard. So we're going to summon out our copy of Fairy Tale Snow out to our side of the field, which then we can synchro summon these 2 on the field to go in for a copy of our Chaos Dragon, or our copy of Chaos Dragon, which is a really cool card to be able to summon out our copy of our Chaos Ruler to our side of the field, because it's going to let us look at the top 5 of the deck and then add a light or a dark dragon monster, which is really good because we hit a copy of Judgment Dragon off of that. And then we're going to send the copy of Wolf, which is going to special summon itself, and then we're going to get all of those in the graveyard. We then also have the copy, like this is a really crazy hand. We then also have the copy of Star Liege that we can banish from the graveyard to be able to grab back the copy of Judgment Dragon. And once we do, we have a complete setup because we can set this card back on top of the deck. And then we can go in for more plays because we have the copy of Plague Spreader in the graveyard, which then is going to let us synchro summon into a copy of Baron de Fleur, which is going to give us a negate on the field, which is really, really good just to get that negate on the field. Now, the copy of Plague Spreader actually will be banished, which is important to keep in mind as you're doing this. And we have the copy of our, let's say a copy of Black Dragon and our copy of the White Dragon that we can banish from the graveyard to special summon back our copy of our Chaos Ruler back to the field. Now, I'm willing to actually throw a copy of Judgment Dragon on the field and go ahead and use its effect, or not use its effect, but be able to go ahead and link summon all of these away to summon out a copy of our... where is it? A copy of Yugioh. Now, the really cool thing is you could have just summoned an Appaloosa to give you more negates on the field, which would have been a really good option. And I actually think I'm going to do that instead of going for the Yugioh, because the Yugioh is going to let us dig for 4, which the dig for 4 is going to get us these cards, which isn't really going to help us out that much. But getting the copy of Appaloosa on the field with the copy of our other cards in our hands, like our copy of Punishment Dragon, is just going to get us so many more plays, which is really, really important for this deck. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and special summon out to my field the copy of Punishment Dragon, because I do have 4 banished Lightsworn monsters with the copies of the Lumina, the copy of Felice, Lila, and the other copy of Lila, which is very important to be able to keep those cards banished because they're all different names. Summon out the copy of Punishment, pay 1,000 life points, and then we can shuffle them all back after we summon out the copy of Judgment Dragon to our side of the field, which is going to be really, really good. You can hold the Judgment Dragon, which is totally fine, or you can summon out the copy of the Chaos Dragon Levinair. If you want to summon out the copy of Chaos Dragon Levinair, it's totally up to you, or you can even wait on these cards because you're already set up for next turn because you have 5 negates on the field. So if you want to go ahead and just wait a turn on these cards, you totally can against the opponent. We're going to shuffle up the deck because we don't know at this point what we're actually going to draw into, and we're going to go ahead and pass over to the opponent. Now, the really cool thing is we do have the copy of Fairy Tale Snow that's in the graveyard that has the ability that during either player's turn, if you have this card in the graveyard, you can banish 7 cards from your hand, field, or graveyard to be able to special summon this card. So we can just banish all these spell cards that we have in the graveyard to be able to summon out the copy of Fairy Tale Snow, which is really good just to get that card on the field. Now, the Chaos Ruler is banished, but again, not really going to matter because we're going to shuffle it back anyways, which is really, really good. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and go and let the opponent go and do their turn, and they're going to pass back over to us because we have 5 negates on the field with the 4 on the Appaloosa and the 1 on the Baron de Fleur, which is really good. And then on their turn, we're going to go ahead, they're going to pass back over to us. We're going to draw into a copy of March of the Dark Brigade, which makes this even better. And then at this point, we're going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of, say, let's say we used all of the negates on this to stop the opponent, and we're going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of Judgment Dragon and board wipe the field for 1,000 life points. We can then special summon out the copy of our Punishment Dragon to our side of the field and our copy of our Chaos Dragon Levinair to our side of the field by banishing 3 monsters from our graveyard that are light or dark monsters, which is going to be really, really good. So we're going to go ahead and banish from our graveyard a copy of Lumina, a copy of, actually, let's banish all light because then we get a card back from the grave. We actually get a monster special summon back from the grave. So I'm going to banish the copy of the, I think these are actually banished as well, because we actually banished these for the copy of the Chaos Ruler. We're going to go ahead and banish those anyways. It doesn't really matter because we're going to shuffle them back in just a second. But we're going to go ahead and banish the copy of the Lumina, the Wolf, and the copy of the Minerva from our graveyard to be able to banish all of those cards from the grave. And then we're going to go ahead and special summon out the Chaos Dragon, which is going to get us a revive back to our side of the field of a copy of our Hand of the Lightsworn, which is really good because if you banish only light monsters, you get special summon a monster from your graveyard in defense position. And then we're going to go ahead and mill 2 off the copy of Raiden, which is going to be another Punishment Dragon, and a copy of our Lumina, which is not going to be that big of a deal because we already have all the cards we need in the graveyard. But we do have the copy of the Fairy Tale Snow that we can resolve if we want to keep that card without shuffling it back in the deck by just going ahead and banishing some cards from the graveyard, like the copies of the spell cards from our grave, which is really, really good just to be able to use those cards. Now, keep in mind, when you actually use the effect of your Raiden to mill 2 more, you're actually going to use the effect of the Punishment Dragon to be able to mill 4 more off the top of the deck because a Lightsworn effect was activated. So keep that in mind. That is mandatory. You have to activate that effect when the copy of Raiden resolve. So at this point, now we're going to activate the copy of the Snow and go 1 right there, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there, 6, 7, which we're going to go ahead and get rid of all of those cards, and we're going to summon out the Fairy Tale Snow to our side of the field. And then we also have the copy of Star Liege. We're just going to go ahead and banish that card, grab back our copy of Punishment Dragon to our hand, and all of these cards are banished, which is why I say the Baron de Fleur can be changed out for the Sword Soul monster, which is really, really important to keep in mind. But at this point, we have this really insane field. You could OTK the opponent just with this, but I can push this even further, which is really cool. So we're going to go ahead and use the copy of Punishment Dragon right now, and we're going to go ahead and put all of our cards that are not Lightsworn monsters directly back into the deck. So we're going to go ahead and put the Star Liege, the Destrudo, the copy of Baron de Fleur, the copy of Appaloosa, and even Judgment Dragon, because it's not Lightsworn by name, and then every banished card that is not a Lightsworn monster actually just stays banished, or actually just goes back into the deck, which is really, really insane that you're just going to get all of these cards back directly into your deck and be able to recycle all of them, which is just really, really insane. There's so many cards being recycled. I'm actually losing them and getting them out of my hand, which is just absolutely crazy that you get all of these cards just put directly back into the deck, and then the deck gets shuffled. These go back into the extra deck, these go back into the main deck, and you just start over again because you can go in all over again. And this is why I said the deck goes in for the grind game, is because you're going to get all of those cards recycled back in the deck and form a new deck off your copy of Punishment Dragon's effect. So then we're going to go ahead and synchro summon these two together, which is what I was kind of aiming for. Put a copy of the Chaos Dragon on our side of the field, which has not used its effect again. We're going to use its effect, shuffle up the deck really quick, and then since it was just synchro summoned to the field again, we're going to go ahead and look at the top of our deck, grab the copy of Chaos Valkyria. These are all going to go to the graveyard, and we can keep rolling. We can just keep rolling with this, which is what's really insane. So at this point, we can go ahead and use the copy of Fairy Tale Snow since we hit a whole bunch of different monsters that we had. So you can use the copy of Fairy Tale Snow if you want to. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. At this point, we can just summon out the copy of Punishment Dragon, use the copy of March, grab back to our hand the copy of our Raiden, and then we can go ahead and use the effect to be able to send the top 4 of our deck to the graveyard, get Spanish, which is really weird. That how, like, I don't know what the likelihood of that is, but hitting all 3 copies of Star Liege like that, that's really weird. We're going to go ahead and banish all those. That's weird. That was cool. I really like that. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and grab back our copy of our hand. And then once we do, we can normal summon it out to our side of the field, or you can just go in for game like this. It's totally fine. You can just go in with all these big dragons and go in for game. That's pretty much the most crazy hand you're going to see out of playing Twilightsworn, because that was, out of all the times I played this deck, this is probably the most insane hand that I've gotten, but I've gotten close to this a bunch of times, which is really, really insane. The only way that you can make this better is if you get your other copy of Judgment Dragon into the graveyard and then be able to grab it back or be able to draw that card directly out, which is really, really good off the the next card, which is really cool, which it's not, or the bottom card, but that's still pretty insane. So let's go ahead and do one more test hand and see what we can do for this deck. Because as you guys can see, This deck is insane. Something to keep in mind, I did almost skip over it, but we did stop and resolve it, is Punishment Dragon. Punishment Dragon and your other Lightsworn monsters don't mill unless you actually use the effect of another Lightsworn monster, which is something that you have to keep in mind as you're playing the deck, which will help you out a lot, that they actually mill additional cards when Lightsworn effects are activated, not during the end phase like your traditional Lightsworn monsters. So that's something to keep in mind as you're playing the deck, and something very, very important while you're playing this deck. It's easy to forget, but it is something to keep in mind. I've noticed it as I've been playtesting the deck, that it is something very, very easy to forget, but it does help you to remember that effect, because it will help you out a lot in the long run of things. But I am going to go ahead and pile shuffle the deck, because as you guys saw, I milled like 4 spells back to back, and all those Star Lieges stuck together, which is why I say at the beginning of the video, it's so important to pile shuffle. It is so important to be able to pile shuffle the deck, because if you don't pile shuffle, you will run into that, where you will mill 3 of the same card, or you will mill out a bunch of the same card to your side of the field. Like, that's really insane to be able to get all 3 of those at the same time. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for one more test stand and see if we can pull off some insane plays. So we're going to draw a copy of Lumina, another copy of Lumina, a copy of Wolf, Minerva, and a copy of Lila. This is why I say pile shuffling is important, because you're going to get a brick like this every so often. It does come up. It will happen. You get that really crazy hand, then you get a brick. So what we're going to do is normal summon out the copy of Lumina, and during the end phase, send the top 3 cards of our deck to the graveyard, hopefully hitting something, which we did in the form of a wolf. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and pass over the opponent. They're going to pass back to us after probably destroying our field. And we're going to go ahead and draw for turn into a copy of Judgment Dragon, but we're already set up with 2 in our graveyard, which is going to help us out just a little bit to be able to help us out with some plays. So at this point, we can go ahead and say you can't use the copy of this because you manage Lightsworn monster from your hand or grave and then target one of your banished, so you don't even have a valid target for that. You can't use the copy of Lila because you already have that. This is pretty much a brick hand, and you're not able to do all that much with it. So let's go ahead and go into one more and see what we can do. That's why it's so important to be able to pile shuffle the deck, because you will run into that. And that always happens when I play decks. I always get this really insane hand, and then you get a hand like that where you will get a really, really good hand, and then you'll get a hand like that that's just absolutely bricks. So that's really important why you pile shuffle the deck, even multiple times in between test hands and in between live duels and in between dueling or in tournaments or everything. As many times as you get the chance to pile shuffle your deck. Very, 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 very important. So let's go ahead and do one more and see what we can do for one more quick test hand and see if we can pull off something really, really insane. So we're going to go ahead and draw into a copy of Star Liege, a copy of Star Liege, hopefully not all 3, Charge, a copy of Destrudo, and a copy of Lumina. That's totally fine because we have the copy of our Charge. If we hit a Lightsworn, we're totally fine. So we're going to go ahead and mill the top 3. We do hit a Lightsworn in the form of Minerva, and we hit the other Star Liege. Really weird. We're hitting all the Star Lieges. That's really weird. So now we're going to go ahead and use the copy of the Minerva to send an additional to the graveyard, which we will get a copy of the Raikou, grab the copy of hand, and shuffle of the deck. And I'm going to give the deck a really thorough shuffle because we are hitting multiples of the same. I think it's because I've been play testing this deck a lot recently, and like you need to pile shuffle it 2 or 3 times before you don't hit the same thing. But we're then going to normal summon out the copy of the Lumina, use the effect, special summon back the copy of Raiden. Raiden effect is going to go off and mill 2 cards off the deck, which is going to help us out a lot just to be able to mill those 2 cards off the top of the deck to be able to get those cards into the graveyard, which is going to help us out a lot just to get those cards in the grave, because now we have some additional plays that we can actually go in for in this deck. Because now we have all of these cards in the graveyard. We do have two Lightsworns in the grave, but that's totally fine, because now that we have 2 Lightsworns in the grave, we can go ahead and link, or you can go ahead and link these 2 together if you want to, or activate the copy of Destrudo to be able to put it on your side of the field by targeting the copy of the Lumina. This card will actually come out as a level 4, so you can overlay these on the field to be able to make a copy of Minerva, which is going to help us out a lot to be able to get that copy of Minerva on our side of the field, because then we can detach the material off the Minerva to be able to send the top 3 from our deck to the graveyard, which we actually had a Punishment Dragon, which is really good, which is going to get us a play to get it back to the hand because we have the copy of Star Liege in the grave, so we can actually grab that card back to our hand, which is really, really nice to be able to set up that play for later on. So at this point, we can go ahead and pass over to the opponent if we want to pass over to the opponent, because we don't have that many more plays to be able to use the copy of Lumina to mill the top 3 cards of our deck to the grave, which we actually hit a Wolf and another copy of Punishment Dragon, which we can grab back out of the grave with the copy of Starliege later on. Really wish it was a copy of a copy of Judgment Dragon, because it would be super easy to summon, but even then we can still get that play rolling. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and pass over the opponent. They're going to do whatever they need to do. We're going to go ahead and draw for turn into a copy of the Lumina Lightsworn Shaman. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and normal summon out my copy of Starliege, use the Starliege effect to be able to send both of these to the graveyard. And once we do, we're going to grab that copy of Judgment Dragon directly for the deck and go in for the OTK, which is going to be really, really easy with this particular hand. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and banish the copy of Starliege, grab out that copy of Punishment Dragon, and once we do, we have pretty much everything we need to go in for the OTK, which is really, really nice, because you have the copy of Lumina. You can go ahead and discard your other copy of Lumina, and then bring out your copy of your... You can actually bring out the copy of Lumina if you wanted to, back to your side of the field, which is going to help you out a lot just to bring that card to your side of the field. But remember, you have to banish when a Lightsworn monster effect is activated, her effect. But you do have the 3 copies of the Judgment and the copies of your other cards in your hand. So we're going to go ahead and overlay both of these on the field, because we're not going to get a special summon with this card's effect. We're actually just going to use the ability to be able to summon out an additional card on the field, which is going to be really, really important to summon out the copy of Dante, which is going to set us up, because we already have in the graveyard, let's see, 1, 2, which we're going to get a third one right there, which is going to get us an additional play, and we can link summon if we need to into another card. So let's go ahead and summon out the copy. Actually, let's step back a play. Let's go ahead and put these back on the field and use the copy of Destrudo that's in the graveyard. I saw that at the last minute, and I'm glad I did, because you can actually use the Destrudo, target this on the field, and then bring it out as a level 4, again by paying half your life points. Then you can go ahead and synchro these two together, and once you do, this will go to the bottom of the deck, which once this will go to the bottom of the deck, you can bring out your copy of your Chaos Dragon and then look at the top 5 of your deck. And once you do, you can grab that other copy of Judgment Dragon. And at this point, we have all the pieces that we need, because we can just go ahead and link all of these together if you want to for a copy of Yugioh, which is going to help us out a lot just to go in for game and get the other cards that we need banished, because now we're going to be able to look at the top 4, and then we're going to put 3 back, which I'm actually going to put back, say, the copy of the White Dragon, the copy of the Hand, and unfortunately probably the copy of the Punishment Dragon. Put those cards back into the deck. And once we do, we're going to be able to go in for game with this particular setup, which is going to help us out a lot, because we're going to go ahead and use this, draw 2, and then we're going to mill 2 off the top of the deck, which is going to be a Plague Spreader and a copy of our other card. And then at this point, I know we have the names in the graveyard, so we can actually just go in for game with this particular setup, because we have 1 name right there. We have 2 names with the copy of the Raikou. We have an additional name with the copy of Wolf, and then finally the Lumina. And then another copy of Lumina, we have the copy of Rain. We have all the names that we could ever want in the graveyard. So we're just going to go ahead and special summon out the copy of Judgment Dragons, both of them to the side of the field. Sometimes that's all you have to do just to be effective with this particular deck. You haven't used the copy of Yugioh yet, so we can actually special summon it out, and then we can just special summon out the copy of Lumina if we want to. You can just hold it in the hand, but I like to special summon it out. Totally up to you guys which way you want to go. But you also have the copy of the Chaos Ruler in the graveyard that we can just go a little bit further with and banish a light monster and a copy of a dark monster from the graveyard, which is going to be these 2 names, and then special summon out the Chaos Ruler back from the graveyard, and then you have all these monsters on the field to OTK. Unfortunately, you don't get to summon out the copy of Punishment Dragon. You could push it a little bit further if you wanted to be able to just go in for more plays. We don't have any more cards to banish, but that's totally fine, because you can basically just go in for game with all of these monsters, which is really, really nice. You can use the effect special summon out the copy of Raiden, but you already have game on the field, so that's totally fine, as you guys can see with this particular deck. So I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. I think that pretty much shows how the deck works, because this deck is absolutely insane. That first test hand is just absolutely insane. I could not believe how crazy that hand actually was, because you can just get those really, really good plays out of this deck. It's super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played with Twilightsworn before, you definitely should, because this deck is just absolutely crazy to play. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.